In the Gospel of John, Jesus says something 7 separate times that would have made every Jewish listener in the room go completely still. He says, I am, not I am a teacher, not I am a prophet, just I am, followed by an image. And in Hebrew ears, that phrase carried weight far beyond ordinary grammar. Centuries earlier, when Moses stood before a burning bush and asked God for a name, God answered, I am who I am. Tell them I am has sent you. So when Jesus stands in front of crowds and says, I am, he isn't just making a poetic statement. He's reaching directly back into Exodus and picking up the name of God himself. John's Gospel records 7 of these statements, each attached to a different image, and each one reframes something enormous about who Jesus claims to be. The first, I am the bread of life. This comes right after Jesus feeds a crowd of thousands with a few loaves and fish. The crowd follows him the next day asking for another sign. And they bring up Moses, who gave their ancestors manna in the wilderness, bread from heaven that kept an entire nation alive for 40 years. Jesus corrects the comparison directly. That bread, he says, kept bodies alive for a single day before it had to fall again. He's claiming something the manna never could, not a temporary provision that runs out by morning, but bread that gives life that never ends, not a snack, sustenance for the soul itself. The second, I am the light of the world. Said in Jerusalem during a festival that involved massive lamps lighting up the temple courts to symbolize God's presence guiding Israel through the wilderness by a pillar of fire. Jesus says this while looking at those very lamps. He's claiming to be what that fire was always pointing toward. Not a temporary symbol, but the actual presence guiding people through the dark. The third, I am the door, spoken in the context of sheep and shepherds. In the ancient world, a shepherd would often sleep across the entrance of a sheep pen, literally becoming the door with his own body. Nothing got in or out without going through him. Jesus is saying access to safety, to belonging, to the fold itself, runs through him specifically, not around him, through him. This is the same claim of exclusivity he'll make again later in more direct words. No one comes to the Father except through him. Here, it's the same truth told as a picture instead of a sentence. The fourth, I am the good shepherd. Immediately following the door statement, this one adds something the door image couldn't carry alone. The door protects entry. The shepherd loves what's inside. And this shepherd says something no ordinary shepherd would say, that he lays down his life for the sheep voluntarily. Not because the sheep are strong enough to demand it, but because he chooses it. Together, the two images make one point from 2 directions. He is both the only way in, and the reason it's safe to come in at all. The fifth, I am the resurrection and the life. Spoken to a grieving woman named Martha, standing outside her brother Lazarus' tomb. She believed in a future resurrection someday, at the end of all things. Jesus doesn't just promise that future event, he claims to be it. The resurrection isn't just something Jesus can perform. It's something Jesus is. The sixth, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Said in a private moment with his closest followers, hours before his arrest, when they were confused and afraid about where he was going and how they could follow. Jesus doesn't give them a map. He gives them himself as the map, not one way among many equally valid paths, but the one place where truth and life are not separate destinations, but the same person. No one comes to the Father except through him. And the seventh, I am the true vine. Spoken to the same small group, using an image every Jewish listener would recognize instantly. The vine was a symbol for Israel itself throughout the Old Testament. Jesus takes that identity and applies it to himself. And he doesn't leave the picture incomplete. He adds that his Father is the vinedresser, the one who tends the vine, prunes the branches, and cares for the whole planting. Jesus isn't just the vine standing alone. He's the vine cared for by the Father, and apart from him, no branch can produce anything of lasting value on its own. Connection to him isn't optional decoration on top of a spiritual life. It's the root system the whole thing depends on. 7 statements, 7 images: bread, light, door, shepherd, resurrection, way, vine. Each one answers a different kind of hunger. Hunger for meaning, hunger for direction in the dark, hunger for safety, hunger for someone who won't abandon you, hunger in the face of death itself, hunger for truth that doesn't shift, hunger to actually produce something with your one life instead of withering on your own. But there's an 8th moment, and it's the one that removes all doubt about what Jesus meant by all 7 others. In John chapter 8, arguing with religious leaders about who he really was, Jesus drops the metaphor entirely. No bread, no light, no vine. He simply says, before Abraham was, I am. Not I was before Abraham, I am. Present tense, timeless, the exact phrase from the burning bush, with nothing attached to soften it. The religious leaders in that room understood exactly what he meant. They didn't call it a strange grammar choice. They picked up stones to kill him for blasphemy, because claiming that name, without a shepherd or a vine or a loaf of bread to hide behind, was claiming to be God himself. That's the moment that makes the other 7 impossible to read as simple metaphor. Every I am, attached to bread, light, a door, a shepherd, a resurrection, a way, a vine, all of it was building toward the same unqualified claim. Jesus finally states outright. Every generation asks the same question the crowds in Jerusalem asked. Who does this man think he is? John's Gospel already answered that question 8 times. The only thing left to decide is what you do with the answer.